Once you get the drum off, take a note of how everything is put together so you can remember how to put it back together again at the end. The top part of the brake shoe goes into the piston here, same on this side. There are triangular holes under here and here that the spring attaches to. The long straight part is on the forward end of the brake. This is the front end of the car here. The star that adjusts the brakes is here. The lever arm that adjusts it automatically is here, and it has a spring that attaches from the arm down to the hole at the bottom here. There's clips here that hold the brake in place when the springs are removed, and then there's a spring down here. The first step in taking the brakes off is to make sure the parking brake is released. Next thing is to pull the tension pins off. For that, you push down on the spring clip, turn the pin 90 degrees, and that pops the clip off. And then the same thing on the other side. The pin just comes out the back side. The next step is to remove the lower return spring. This is probably easiest with a screwdriver, like so, like that. With the clips and the spring off, now this whole assembly just lifts off out of the top, slides out through the top of that piston assembly. But like I said, be careful not to pop the thing out or you'll leak a bunch of fluid everywhere. But it does fit out past this, if you're careful. There we go. And the last step is to remove the parking brake cable from the bottom. Remove the parking brake cable. There's a big spring here. You can just slide that back as far as you can get it, and then the cable just kind of pops out of the track, like so. Next step is to take the brake arm and remove this so you can use it on the new brake shoes. It's got one of these clips here that needs to get pulled off, and this can be a real pain to get out. I might just Dremel it across the back here. You'd have to be really careful not to damage the pin itself, but I think I'll have to do that. Okay, I've taken the Dremel to the clip. You also have to be careful not to damage the washer underneath, but I've weakened this. I haven't cut all the way through it. I don't want to take a chance on damaging the washer or the arm, and now it should be hopefully soft enough that I can break that loose. There comes the clip. Then you've got a washer here, and the arm comes off, and then the pin that it hinges on comes out. So the pin for the lever arm goes through the top hole here. And it's a little snug on this one. Once you have the pin through the arm, then this goes on the back. Then you would put the washer on there, and then a new replacement clip. Then we need to put grease on the wear points. You can see where the brake pad surfaces. These edges here and here on the back, they contact these points on the brake assembly, so they need to be greased, as well as the other points that need to be greased in the manual. You also want the cylinder greased. And as I said before, you gotta be careful with the cylinder. It's real easy for these pistons to push out. If you push on this one too hard, you'll pop the backside out. They compress to some extent, but if you push it too far, then they work against each other like that. And then you can pop one out. This rubber boot will pop off and the cylinder will come right out. I found it easier to put this back together on the brake assembly rather than assembling all the parts and then sliding them over, because this gap here is kind of narrow. So I will be doing it this way. The pin, and these are all new parts, you can buy these parts for about $10 at a parts store. This is what will hold this shoe in place. Like so. Then that gets the clip. I'm going to use these old clips because the new ones are really tight. So the trick here is to grab that pin, take the screwdriver, push the clip, turn it, and that will hold it in place. And it still is able to move around a bit like this, but it will fall off the mount points. Now for the aft brake shoe, first thing I'm going to do is put it on the cable. It's a little bit easier this way than it is waiting for the thing to be in place and then try to stick it on there. So we'll pull that spring back and pop that over there like so. That's how you get that on. So now I'm going to take the other half of the arm, put it up into here, and then move this up so it sits in the piston, and now that gets slid back more in the correct place, otherwise the drum won't fit back on. Now this arm is in place to adjust the star adjustment there. And now we just have to put 3 springs on. I can't find the new spring for this one, so I'll just use the old one. It clips in there, and the bottom end goes to the hole here. That goes on there, like so. Then the hardest spring of all is the top one. And there goes the cylinder. Damn it. This is an example of the cylinder coming out, which it's not supposed to do. So I finally got the spring on, figured out what worked. Ultimately was I put tie wraps around here to compress the cylinder here so that it doesn't want to, the spring doesn't want to pop the cylinder out the opposite side from the way you're pulling. I used the vice grips. I used the screwdriver here to hold this from moving, pushing the piston in too far here, and I was able to lift the spring up and into the hole and then pop it in there with a screwdriver. Lastly, bottom spring goes in, and it goes behind this metal. Here's a close-up of this setup here. That spring attaches in that triangular hole, and goes to the other one with the long straight part on the forward end of the car. There's the adjuster spring, which goes down to this hole, and the spring underneath. Now we put the drum back on. Just a note, do not push the brake pedal while you have the drum off, or the cylinder will pop out and bleed fluid. If this has a tough time fitting on, that means the adjustment is set too far. It's got a little bit too much slop, so I'm going to adjust the adjustment spring a bit to make it a little bit more snug, hopefully. Just a little bit of scraping on some parts of the turn, so that should be good. Now time to put the wheel back on.